Jimin wasn't on that stage. He wasn't in Korea for the show. As far as anyone can confirm, he wasn't backstage, he wasn't in the wings, he wasn't anywhere near the artists who were performing that night. And yet, if you look at the footage coming out of his concert right now, you'll see his face. 30 feet tall, lit up in gold and orange, staring out over tens of thousands of screaming fans who came to see a completely different group. So what is going on here? Why is BTS's Jimin showing up on the biggest screen at one of the most anticipated K-pop concerts of the year? A concert he had absolutely nothing to do with performing. Stick with me, because the answer takes us back 3 years, connects two of the biggest names in the history of this entire genre, and honestly, by the end of this video, you're going to understand why this one clip has fans from two completely different fandoms losing their minds at the exact same time. Let's set the scene first, because context matters here. Right now, as we speak, one of the most legendary groups in K-pop history is in the middle of something fans have been begging for since 2017. BIGBANG, the group that basically built the blueprint for modern K-pop as we know it, is back on a stadium stage for the first time in nearly a decade. We're talking about G-Dragon, Taeyang, and Daesung, three artists who have each become massive solo stars in their own right, standing together again in front of a sold-out crowd. This isn't a comeback single. This isn't a surprise collab. This is a full-blown 20th anniversary world tour, kicking off with 3 nights at Goyang Stadium in South Korea, a venue that holds over 40,000 people a night, and this is just the opening stretch. From here, the tour is reportedly set to hit over 30 shows across 18 cities, spanning North America, Europe, Asia, and Australia, running all the way into early next year. If you're not deep into K-pop history, let me put it simply. This is the equivalent of a legacy rock band that shaped an entire genre finally getting back on the road together after everyone assumed it might never happen again. That's the scale we're talking about. And in the middle of all that spectacle, all that nostalgia, all that history being made in real time, cameras and fans in the crowd captured something that had absolutely nothing to do with BIGBANG's own discography. During one of the video segments played on the massive LED screens, footage appears to show Jimin, yes, that Jimin, from BTS, one of the most famous idols on the planet, lighting up the stadium screen. Fans shared clips and photos from the show, including images circulating online right after the performance, show what looks like a music video moment featuring both Taeyang and Jimin playing across that screen while the crowd watches. Now I want to be upfront with you, because accuracy matters more to me than just chasing a wild headline. This hasn't been confirmed in an official statement from BIGBANG's team or their label. So what we're working with here is fan footage and photos that are circulating from the concert itself. But based on what's been shared, and based on how these BIGBANG shows have reportedly been structured, this appears to line up with a retrospective video package, basically a highlight reel moment, that plays before the members transition into their individual solo eras during the show. And if that's the segment this footage is from, it would make complete sense why Jimin's face would be part of it. Here's why. Rewind the clock to January of 2023. Taeyang, one of BIGBANG's most beloved vocalists, was gearing up for his big return to music after years of quiet, following his military service. This was his first new solo release in over 5 years, and instead of just dropping a song on his own, he did something that immediately broke the internet. He announced a collaboration with BTS's Jimin. The track was called VIBE, and the moment that announcement dropped, it didn't just get attention, it actually hit #1 on Billboard's Hot Trending Songs chart before the song had even been released. Let that sink in for a second. Just the announcement, just 2 names being paired together, was enough to send a song straight to the top of a trending chart. That's the kind of pull both of these artists have individually, and you can imagine what happened when you put them together. When VIBE finally dropped, it wasn't just a feature verse tacked onto someone else's song. Jimin was actually credited as one of the composers on the track, working alongside Taeyang and a team of producers, which meant this wasn't some quick collab thrown together for buzz. This was something both artists were genuinely hands-on with from the ground up. The song ended up charting in more than 15 countries and landed on the Billboard Hot 100, a pretty massive achievement for a song that was technically a feature, not even Jimin's own solo lead single. A few days after the original release, they doubled down and dropped a live, stripped-back version of VIBE. This warm, acoustic performance video with a full band, Taeyang on keys, Jimin coming in on the second verse, both of them trading vocals and harmonies in this relaxed studio setting that felt completely different from the polished music video. Fans ate it up, and if you go back and watch interviews or behind-the-scenes clips from that era, you'll actually hear Jimin talk about how much he looked up to Taeyang, how Taeyang was one of the artists who influenced him coming up in the industry. So this wasn't just two labels putting two popular names on a track for a headline. This was, by most accounts at the time, a genuinely meaningful moment between an artist and someone he considered one of his idols. So now, fast forward to 2026. Big Bang is finally back on stage together after years of solo careers, side projects, and honestly, years of fans wondering if a full-scale tour like this would ever happen again. And as part of celebrating 20 years since their debut, as part of looking back on everything this group and its members have built, individually and together, it makes total sense that a moment like the VIBE collaboration would resurface. Because if you're building a retrospective of Taeyang's solo career, of the highlights, the achievements, the moments that defined his post-military comeback, VIBE is absolutely one of those moments. It marked his first release in years. It topped trending charts before it even came out. And it paired him with one of the most beloved idols of a generation that came right after Big Bang's. So even if Jimin himself is nowhere near that stadium, even if he has zero involvement in this tour, his presence on that screen, if the footage is accurately representing what fans think it is, isn't random at all. It's a callback to a real, documented, meaningful chapter in Taeyang's career, one that Jimin was very much a part of creating. And this is where things get really interesting, because think about the two fan bases we're talking about here. On one side, you've got VIPs, the fans who have followed Big Bang since the beginning, who have waited years, some of them since 2017, to see these members share a stage again. On the other side, you've got ARMY, the fans who follow BTS and, by extension, follow Jimin's every move, every collaboration, every mention. These are two of the most massive, most passionate fan bases in the history of music, full stop. And when a clip like this starts circulating, when people start posting photos of Jimin's face on a Big Bang stage screen, you get this incredible crossover moment where both fandoms are suddenly paying attention to the same clip for slightly different reasons. VIPs are celebrating it as part of their reunion tour, part of the nostalgia, part of the legacy being honored on that stage. ARMY is celebrating it because their favorite idol just got a shout-out, in visual form, at one of the biggest concerts of the year, from a group that Jimin himself has publicly admired. That's rare. That's genuinely rare in the K-pop world, where fandoms can sometimes feel pretty siloed, where you don't always see this kind of organic overlap happening in real time. But collaborations like VIBE back in 2023 are exactly the kind of thing that builds these bridges. It's not a forced crossover. It's not two companies trying to manufacture a moment. It's two artists who clearly respected each other, made something together because they wanted to, and years later, that moment is still resonating enough that it gets pulled back into the spotlight during one of the most important tours either of their groups has ever put together. Now, let's talk about timing for a second, because this couldn't really be happening at a more fascinating moment for either artist. While Big Bang has spent the better part of this year rebuilding momentum toward this massive reunion tour, including a headline-making appearance at Coachella back in the spring before the stadium run even started, Jimin and the rest of BTS have been in the middle of one of the biggest chapters of their own career. This year alone, BTS has been running their own massive world tour, breaking records, drawing huge crowds across multiple continents, and generating non-stop headlines of their own. So you've essentially got two of the most influential acts in the history of this genre, both mid-tour, both making history in their own lane, and somehow their paths still cross, even if it's just through a music video playing on a stadium screen thousands of miles from wherever Jimin actually is on any given night. It's a small moment in the grand scheme of everything both of these artists have going on this year, but it's the kind of small moment that fans notice immediately, because when you love an artist, you notice everything. Even a few seconds of footage playing in the background of someone else's concert. Let's talk a little more about just how big this Big Bang tour actually is, because I think it helps explain why a retrospective moment like this one carries so much weight. This isn't just a random string of shows. This is being treated as one of the biggest live music events of the entire year in the K-pop world, a full-circle moment for a group that many fans genuinely believed might never tour together again after 2017. Before the stadium run even kicked off, Big Bang made headlines with a surprise return to the stage at Coachella earlier this year, which basically confirmed for fans that something bigger was coming. And sure enough, a few months later, here we are, watching them open a tour that's set to stretch across dozens of shows in nearly 20 cities worldwide, hitting major markets in the United States, the United Kingdom, and beyond over the coming months. When you're building a show of this scale, when you're trying to honor 20 years of history in one production, every single detail matters, including which visuals you choose to put on that screen behind you. So the fact that a moment tied to Jimin made the cut, even briefly, tells you something about how significant that collaboration still is when people look back at everything Taeyang has accomplished as a solo artist. It's also worth pointing out just how packed this show has reportedly been with references to each member's individual journey. Based on what's been shared from the concert so far, the setlist appears to be broken into distinct segments, essentially chapters, where each member gets a spotlight moment built around their own solo era before the group comes back together for the bigger group numbers. Taeyang's segment reportedly features some of his most recognizable solo tracks, some of them being performed live for the first time in years, which only reinforces the idea that this show was designed as a genuine celebration of everything each of these artists has built outside of Big Bang, as well as together. If VIBE really was part of that retrospective package leading into his solo segment, it fits perfectly into that structure, because there's honestly not a more fitting song to represent that specific chapter of his comeback story. If you're new to this whole world, and you're wondering why any of this matters, here's the bigger picture. Big Bang isn't just another K-pop group. Depending on who you ask, they're often talked about as one of the groups that helped shape what modern K-pop even looks like, influencing production styles, performance concepts, and honestly, influencing a huge number of artists who came after them, including members of groups like BTS. So when someone from a younger generation of K-pop, someone as globally recognized as Jimin, ends up collaborating with a member of a group that arguably helped pave the way for that entire wave of global K-pop success, it's not just a random feature. It's symbolic. It's this passing of a torch moment, or maybe more accurately, this moment where two generations that clearly respect each other get to share space, even briefly, even just through a song and a screen. And that's really what makes this clip so compelling, even if it's just a few seconds long. Even if Jimin himself probably has no idea this exact moment is being talked about online right now. It's proof of a connection that already existed, resurfacing in a completely different context. It's not new news that Taeyang and Jimin worked together. That happened years ago, and plenty of people already knew about it. But seeing it pop back up, unprompted, in the middle of a completely different event, at a completely different point in both of their careers, that's the kind of thing that reminds fans why they fell in love with these artists and this whole industry in the first place. These connections don't disappear. They get referenced, they get honored, and every once in a while, they show up again when you least expect it. There's another layer to this worth sitting with for a second, and it's something a lot of longtime fans of either group have pointed out over the years. Jimin has never been shy about naming the artists who shaped him growing up, and Taeyang has consistently come up in those conversations. When you're talking about someone as influential and as globally recognized as Jimin, openly crediting a member of Big Bang as an inspiration, that's not a small thing in an industry where idols are often coached to stay diplomatically vague about who they look up to. It adds a layer of sincerity to the VIBE collaboration that goes beyond just two labels agreeing to a feature. It reads more like a genuine, full-circle moment for Jimin himself, getting to actually create something alongside someone whose work influenced the artist he became. So when that same moment gets revisited years later, on a night built entirely around honoring legacy, it hits a little differently than your average celebrity cameo would. Now here's something I want you to think about while you're watching this. If you go back and actually watch the VIBE music video, or even better, that live acoustic version I mentioned earlier, you'll notice something. There's a real chemistry there, a real ease between the two of them. This wasn't two artists who were awkwardly thrown together for a marketing push. Jimin, even performing alongside someone he's publicly said he admired, holds his own completely, bringing his own style, his own vocal color, his own stage presence into a song that could have easily just felt like a Taeyang solo track with a guest verse. Instead, it feels like an actual collaboration, a genuine back and forth between two artists who clearly enjoyed making that song together. And that's probably part of why, 3 years later, it's still the kind of moment worth revisiting on a night as big as this one. So let's circle back to the question we started with. What was Jimin doing at this Big Bang concert if he wasn't even there? Based on everything we've covered, the most likely answer is that he wasn't there as a performer. He wasn't there as a surprise guest. He was there as a memory, as a piece of history being honored on a night dedicated to 20 years of Big Bang's legacy. If the footage circulating from fans is accurate, and again, this hasn't been officially confirmed by Big Bang's team, it looks like part of a retrospective segment celebrating Taeyang's solo career, and VIBE, the song he made with Jimin, was clearly significant enough to earn its place in that highlight reel. Jimin's face on that screen isn't a coincidence, and it isn't some kind of random editing choice. If this is what it appears to be, it's a callback to a real chapter, a real collaboration, and a real friendship, or at the very least a real mutual respect, between two artists from two different generations of the same industry. Before we wrap this up, I want to know what you think, because this is exactly the kind of moment that gets people talking. Did you know about the VIBE collaboration before this clip started going around? Were you a fan of that song back when it originally dropped in 2023? And more importantly, what did you think seeing Jimin's face pop up in the middle of a completely different group's reunion concert? Drop a comment below and let me know, because I read every single one, and honestly, these crossover moments are some of my favorite things to cover, because they show just how connected this entire industry really is, even when it doesn't look like it on the surface. And listen, if you're the kind of person who loves catching these little details, these moments that most casual fans might scroll right past without a second thought, then you already know exactly what kind of channel this is. We dig into everything happening around Jimin, around BTS, and around the bigger world they're part of, whether that's a massive world tour, a surprise collaboration resurfacing years later, or a single frame on a stadium screen that ends up meaning way more than it looks like at first glance. So if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, because trust me, there is a lot more coming, and you do not want to miss the next one. Turn on notifications too, because these stories move fast, and I want you to be the first to know when something new drops. And honestly, keep an eye on how this clip continues to spread over the next few days, because moments like this one tend to have a second life online. What starts as a handful of fan photos from inside the stadium usually turns into edited clips, reaction videos, and side-by-side comparisons, pulling up the original VIBE music video next to this new footage. That's usually when a moment like this really explodes, once people outside the venue start connecting the dots for themselves and sharing it with fans who had no idea this crossover even existed. So if you're seeing this clip for the first time right now, you're actually catching the story fairly early, which is exactly why I wanted to break it all down for you before it gets buried under 100 different reaction takes. One more thing before you go. If this video gave you even a little bit of that fandom crossover excitement, do me a favor and hit that like button. It genuinely helps this video reach more people who would love this kind of content just as much as you clearly do, and it tells YouTube to actually put this in front of more BTS fans and more K-pop fans who are curious about these connections. And if you know someone, a friend, a group chat, anyone who would appreciate seeing Jimin's little cameo moment at one of the biggest concerts of the year, send this their way. Let's get more people talking about it. At the end of the day, this is what makes following artists like Jimin so much fun. It's not just about the big scheduled comebacks or the massive world tours, even though those are obviously huge. It's about these unexpected little threads that connect back to something that happened years ago, showing up again when you least expect it, tying two completely different worlds together for just a few seconds. Whether you came into this video already knowing everything about VIBE, or whether this is the first time you're even hearing about that collaboration, I hope you walked away from this with a clearer picture of exactly why that clip is spreading right now, and exactly why it matters to two different fandoms at the exact same time. So that's the story behind Jimin showing up at a concert he wasn't even at. Not a surprise appearance, not some secret guest spot, but a genuine piece of music history resurfacing at exactly the right moment, on exactly the right stage, in front of exactly the kind of crowd that would appreciate what it represents. Thanks for watching all the way through. If you want more breakdowns like this one, more deep dives into everything Jimin and BTS related, you already know what to do. Subscribe, turn on that bell, drop your thoughts in the comments, and I will see you in the very next video.